I reached the middle of the earth today. A blessed land stood surrounded by deep stone. Pure water flowed beneath the roots of mountains. But the valleys hold a terrifying secret. Judgment waits where the streams meet the rock.
From the remote mountains of the west and the garden of the sapphire throne, we moved toward the center. This was not a journey across mere miles, but a transition toward the heart of the world's structure. I stood beside Enoch as he looked upon a land that felt different from the extremes of the earth. Here, the air did not vibrate with the fire of the luminaries, nor did it carry the heavy silence of the four chambers of the dead. It was a place of balance, yet a place of intense, focused weight. We reached a region that the scribe described as blessed. It was a fertile expanse, lush with trees whose branches were eternally blooming, a stark contrast to the desolate edges we had left behind. This was the middle of the earth, the pivot point upon which the destiny of man and angel turns. The scribe marveled at the greenery, for it was a sign of the king's favor, preserved in the very center of the terrestrial plane.
The center is the pivot of all things.
Enoch gazed upon the holy mountain that rose from the heart of this blessed place. Beneath this mountain, toward the east, there was a stream. I watched him track the movement of the water. It did not wander aimlessly. It flowed toward the south with a divine purpose. In the architecture of the world, water is never merely an element. It is a servant of the decree. This stream was the lifeblood of the center, nourishing the roots of the holy trees and keeping the blessed land in a state of perpetual spring. But as the scribe's eyes followed the water, he began to see the complexity of the surrounding stone. This was not an open plain. It was a fortress of geology. Toward the east, another mountain rose, even higher than the holy mountain of the center. Between them lay a ravine, narrow and deep. It was as if the earth had been precisely cut by a celestial blade to create a boundary that no foot of flesh could easily cross.
The rock guards what the garden produces.
In this deep ravine, another stream ran along the mountain. Enoch stood at the edge, looking down into the darkness. He noted that the water here was separated from the world above. It moved in the shadows of the hard rock, a hidden force beneath the feet of the living. We then turned our gaze toward the west. There stood another mountain, lower than the others, of small elevation. Between it and the previous mountains lay another ravine, deep and dry. I watched the scribe process this duality. To the east, there was the abundance of water and life. To the west and the south, there were the empty chasms. This was a map of choices. The center of the world is not a place of lukewarm compromise. It is the site where the absolute fertility of the blessing meets the absolute sterility of the void.
Every stream flows toward a final witness.
The three mountains formed a triangle of stone, and at their extremities, there was yet another ravine, deep and dry. Enoch was struck by the consistency of the design. These were not natural formations born of time and erosion. They were partitions. He remarked that all the ravines were deep and narrow, formed entirely of hard rock. I remember when the Word spoke and these chasms opened. We did not plant trees in these valleys. We did not allow the water of the Holy Spring to settle in these depths. They were created to be empty. They were created to be smooth. The smoothness of the rock ensured that anything placed within the ravine would remain there, unable to climb out, unable to hide in the crevices. The geography was a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. Once a soul falls into the center's depth, there is no foothold for escape.
The stone is harder than the human heart.
Enoch marveled at the rocks. He marveled at the ravines. He marveled very much. I saw his mind racing to understand the necessity of such a terrifying structure in the middle of a blessed land. He looked at the lush branches of the trees above, and then at the gray, unyielding stone below. This is the truth that the modern world tries to forget. The garden exists because the fence is strong. The holiness of the center is protected by the severity of the chasms. The scribe walked along the ridges, his shadow falling into the pits where no life grew. He saw that the beauty of the middle of the earth was not a fragile thing, but a reality anchored in the hardest rock of the firmament. The contrast was a warning. It told him that the closer one gets to the heart of the world, the more absolute the consequences become.
The abyss is the foundation of the garden.
We moved along the holy mountain, and Enoch noted the orientation of the valleys. They all converged. It was a system of drains for the spirit. Every slope of the mountains directed the gaze and the flow toward these narrow passages. This revealed the judicial nature of the center. It is the great courtroom. When the Lord of Glory descends to the sapphire throne we saw in the previous chapters, this is the ground that will support his weight. The mountains will stand as witnesses, and the ravines will wait as the executioners of the decree. The scribe was mapping the site of the ultimate accounting. He was seeing the place where the king would sit to judge the nations and the fallen stars. The hard rock was the ledger upon which the final deeds would be measured.
The height is only half of the story.
As we stood there, I felt the resonance of the ancient earth. The mountains in the east, the mountain in the west, and the peaks of the south were like the pillars of a great house. Enoch noted that the water flowed toward the east, which is the direction of the rising light, yet the ravines remained dry and dark. This is the mystery of the divine economy. The blessing is directed toward the light, but the judgment is reserved for the shadows. The scribe asked no questions yet, for the weight of the sight was enough to silence his tongue. He simply recorded the depths. He recorded the lack of trees in the hollows. He recorded the smoothness of the walls. He was creating a record for the generations who would one day live in the shadow of these very mountains, unaware of the pits beneath their feet.
To see the light, you must understand the shadow.
The narrowness of the ravines spoke of a focused intensity. They were not wide enough for an army, but they were deep enough for a world. I, Ezrael, have watched the eras pass, and I have seen how the children of men fear the open void, yet they ignore the narrow chasm. Enoch did not ignore it. He stood until his eyes adjusted to the gloom of the deep. He saw that the hard rock was not like the limestone of the surface. It was the primary material of the earth's skeleton, unweathered by the sun. It was cold. It was absolute. The scribe's heart began to understand that the center of the world was not just a place of life, but a place of containment. The blessed land was the target of the pilgrimage, but the ravines were the target of the fall.
The throne and the pit are one design.
Enoch continued to survey the three mountains. He saw how the lower mountain to the west served as a boundary, a step down from the heights of the east. This was the direction of the setting sun, the direction of the end. The ravine between the west and the center was particularly dry. It represented the absence of the spirit. I watched the scribe as he drew the lines of this geography in his heart. He saw the symmetry. 3 mountains on one side, the holy peak in the middle, and the valleys intersecting at the extremities. It was a seal of stone upon the surface of the earth. No one could enter the center without crossing the ravines. No one could leave the center without acknowledging the mountains. The geography was the gatekeeper.
The law is written in the weight of the mountain.
The scribe was moved by the silence of the ravines. On the mountain of the trees, there was the sound of wind and the rustle of leaves. But in the chasms of the hard rock, there was only the echo of one's own breath. This silence is the silence of the weight. It is the period between the act and the judgment. Enoch realized that the world above was noisy, with the rebellion of the giants and the cries of the oppressed. But the world below was waiting in perfect, terrifying stillness. The ravines were the reservoirs of the coming wrath. They were the bowls into which the cup of iniquity would eventually be poured. He marveled very much, for the scale of the preparation was beyond his human estimation of justice.
The center is a crossroad of stone and life.
I remember the light of that day. It was clear and sharp, illuminating the jagged edges of the mountains. Enoch looked at the mountain to the south, seeing how it anchored the formation. This was the direction of the heat, yet the valley beneath it was deep and dry. This suggests that even the fire of the sun cannot bring life to the place that is decreed to be empty. The scribe saw that the blessedness of the land was a specific localized miracle. It was a garden surrounded by a desert of stone. This is the condition of the holy. It is always surrounded by the vacuum. To stay in the blessed land, one must remain on the heights. To descend is to enter the place where nothing grows and no water flows.
Narrow is the path to the depths.
Enoch's marveling was not born of wonder, but of a heavy realization. He saw that the hard rock was a mirror of the heart of the lawless. Just as the rock would not allow a tree to take root, the hearts of the rebellious would not allow the word to grow. Therefore, the geography was a fitting house for their end. The scribe stood on the ridge, looking from the blooming branches to the sterile pits, and he understood the why of the creation. The King of Glory had built a world where everything has its proper place. The blessing has its mountain. The curse has its ravine. There is no confusion in the architecture of the Almighty. The center of the world is the place where all things are finally sorted.
Light creates a shadow that the dark cannot hide.
We walked further toward the south, and the scribe noted that the ravines became even more pronounced. The extremities of the three mountains were the points where the earth seemed to open its mouth. I watched Enoch as he peered into these gaps. He saw that they were all connected. It was a network of isolation. If a spirit were placed in the eastern ravine, it could wander into the southern or the western, but it could never rise to the holy mountain. The design was a maze of despair. The hard rock was the wall of a prison that required no guards, for the geometry itself was the jailer. The scribe's spirit groaned at the finality of the stone.
The mountain is the witness that never sleeps.
Enoch turned to the guide, the holy angel who led us. He was preparing to ask the question that had been building since he first saw the mountain of the west. He wanted to know the purpose. He wanted to know the names of the valleys. He saw the blessed land, and he saw the accursed valley between them. This transition from chapter 26 to chapter 27 is the transition from sight to understanding. But for now, he was simply required to witness the physical reality. He had to see that the center of the world was not a myth. It was a place of mountains and water and chasms. It was a place of very smooth rock. The smoothness was the most terrifying detail, for it meant there was no mercy in the descent.
The stream knows who belongs to the spring.
I, Ezrael, saw the scribe's hand as he recorded the hard rock. He wrote with the urgency of a man who knows that his words are the only bridge for a blind humanity. He knew that the people of the later days would walk upon the earth as if it were a flat and harmless plain. They would build their cities and dream their dreams, oblivious to the fact that they were living on the rim of the central ravines. He wrote to warn them that the center of the world is not a playground, but a site of holy significance. The blessed land is available, but the accursed valley is equally present. Every step taken in the middle of the earth is a step on the edge of eternity.
The debt of the earth is measured in miles of stone.
The water continued to flow from beneath the mountain toward the east. It was a constant reminder of the life that is available to those who stay within the blessing. Enoch watched a leaf fall from a blooming branch and drift onto the surface of the stream. It was carried away toward the rising sun. But he also saw a stone fall from the ridge into the dry ravine. It did not drift. It struck the hard rock with a sharp, final sound and remained in the darkness. This was the lesson of the center. You are either the leaf in the stream or the stone in the chasm. You are either carried by the grace or you are fixed by the weight.
The geography of the end is already written.
Enoch looked one last time at the three mountains. He saw their strength. He saw their height. He saw the way they leaned toward each other, as if sharing a secret decree. He realized that the mountains were not just stone. They were the guardians of the sanctuary. They were the sentinels of the King of Glory. They stood to ensure that the blessed land remained holy and that the accursed valley remained separate. I watched the scribe bow his head in reverence. He was no longer just a traveler. He was a worshiper of the order. He saw that the world was beautiful because it was judged. He saw that the garden was blooming because the law was firm.
In the center, there is no room for the lukewarm.
The scribe's marveling was the beginning of his wisdom. To marvel at the rocks is to recognize the power of the Creator. To marvel at the ravines is to recognize the justice of the judge. Enoch had seen the fire in the west, and now he had seen the stone in the center. He was being prepared for the full revelation of the divine purpose. The geography was the stage. The actors were soon to be revealed. He stood at the intersection of the three valleys, the blessed land behind him and the accursed valley before him, and he waited for the angel to speak the word that would explain the mystery of the pit.
The pit has a mouth that is waiting to speak.
We began to move away from the ridges of the hard rock, turning our faces toward the interior of the blessed land. The scent of the blooming branches returned, masking the cold smell of the chasms. But the image of the smooth, deep ravines remained etched in the scribe's mind. He knew that he could never look at the earth the same way again. He knew that every beautiful landscape was merely a thin veil over a deep accounting. The center of the world was the proof. It was the place where the mask was removed. It was the place where the earth revealed its true form, a throne surrounded by a prison.
The garden grows because the valley is deep.
The record of the mountains and the streams is a map for the soul. Enoch wrote it so that you would know where you are standing. You are in the middle of the world. You are between the east and the west, between the south and the north. You are on the edge of the ravines of the hard rock. The water is flowing from the holy mountain, and it is flowing for you. But the chasm is also there, and it is waiting for those who refuse the stream. The geography is not a mystery. It is a testimony. The center is the place where your story will find its final chapter.
The journey into the heart of the world begins.
I, Ezrael, walked with the scribe as he moved toward the source of the water. We were going to meet the angel who would explain the purpose of the accursed valley. The mountains watched us in silence. The ravines waited in the dark. The blessed land offered its shade. This was the moment of the great transition. We had seen the what, and now we were to hear the why. The scribe was ready. He had seen the rocks, and he had marveled very much. He was prepared to hear the verdict of the valley that is filled with fire and the judgment of the spirits.
One vision of the throne changes every path taken.
As the sun reached its zenith over the holy mountain, the shadows of the ravines shortened but did not disappear. They are eternal shadows. They are the shadows cast by the holiness of the Most High. Enoch looked back at the narrow passages of the hard rock and saw them for what they truly were, the boundaries of the kingdom. The center of the world is a place of absolute safety for the righteous and absolute terror for the lawless. It is the place where the king will plant his feet, and it is where the tree of life will find its final home among the humble.
The center holds the weight of all human history.
You have seen the geography of the center through the eyes of the scribe. You have seen the mountains of pearl and sapphire in the distance, and the hard rock of the ravines at your feet. Do not walk lightly upon this ground. Do not assume the earth is a silent, unthinking ball of dust. It is a witness. It is a record. It is a prepared site for a visitation that is closer than the world dares to imagine. The center of the world is active. It is alive with the weight of the decree. The mountains are standing. The streams are flowing. The ravines are waiting.
Finality is the fruit of the seeds planted today. The center of the world is a balance of stone and life. I have seen the valleys where the silence is as hard as the rock. The blessed land is a memory of what you were meant to be. The accursed valley is a warning of what you might become. Next, we hear the verdict of the valley that is filled with fire.